An attack on the Barakah nuclear power plant in the United Arab Emirates has threatened the nuclear safety in the United Arab Emirates. A drone strike on the morning of Sunday, May 17, caused a fire in an electrical generator located outside the inner site perimeter of the plant. Radiation levels at the nuclear power plant remain normal and no injuries were reported. The use of emergency diesel generators to provide power to the nuclear power plant Unit 3 was necessary, but off-site power has since been restored, an important step for nuclear safety. Not long after the attack, I spoke on the phone with His Highness Abdullah bin Zayed Al Nahyan, Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation of the UAE, assuring him of the IAEA's support. Over the past few days, I have also been in contact with leaders throughout the Gulf region, and I can see the unease and great concern. I have been discussing how the IAEA can offer assistance. Since last year, the IAEA has been gathering information as well as analyzing and evaluating emergency preparedness and response capacities. I will be traveling to the Gulf soon to continue this important joint work. The IAEA will continue providing guidance and training to competent authorities and first responders in areas including radiological impact, emergency protective measures for the public and workers, international emergency arrangements, emergency response plans, and provision of equipment and services to support emergency response. We stand ready, if necessary, to deploy the agency's nuclear safety and security experts to support nuclear safety efforts on the ground, in accordance with the IAEA's mandate. We have done this in other war theaters with good results. The IAEA's Incident and Emergency Center in Vienna is operating 24/7, following the situation closely, and is in constant contact with the UAE's authorities. The situation, Mr. President, is of grave concern. This is a nuclear site in the Middle East where the consequences of an attack could be most serious. It is an operating nuclear power plant, and as such, it hosts thousands of kilograms of nuclear material in the core of the reactors, fresh and spent fuel. I want to make it absolutely and completely clear. In case of an attack on the Barakah nuclear power plant, a direct hit could result in a very high release of radioactivity to the environment. A hit that disabled the lines supplying electrical power to the plant could increase the likelihood of its reactors' cores melting, which could result in a high release of radioactivity. In their worst cases, both scenarios would necessitate protective actions, such as evacuations and sheltering of the population, or the need to take stable iodine, with the reach extending to distances from a few to several hundred kilometers. Radiation monitoring would need to cover distances of several hundred kilometers, and food restrictions may need to be implemented. As I stated several times, including to this Council, attacks on nuclear facilities devoted to peaceful purposes are unacceptable. Military activity on NPPs and other nuclear facilities carry undeniable risks. I would like to commend the authorities of the UAE for providing the IAEA with timely and regular technical information about affected nuclear facilities and their respective sites. Immediate engagement with the IAEA's Incident and Emergency Center is of the essence.
Recently, the Ministry of Defense of the United Arab Emirates reported that a drone entered the country's airspace from Iraqi territory. According to the IAEA, as stated today by Mr. Grossi, after the attack on the power supply to one of the reactors of Unit Number 3 was carried out using diesel generators. Fortunately, the radiation level remains normal, but this does not diminish the overall danger of this incident. The position of the Russian Federation on nuclear and physical security issues is principled and consistent. Attacks on peaceful nuclear facilities in any country in the world, especially those that are located under the guarantee of the IAEA, are categorically unacceptable. Such actions constitute a violation of international law, international humanitarian law, relevant conventions and nuclear safety standards. Against this backdrop, our country categorically condemns the actions of those who attacked the nuclear power plant in the territory of the United Arab Emirates. Unfortunately, the episode being discussed today is far from the first attack on a peaceful nuclear facility in the context of the current escalation in the Middle East. Back in June 2025, Israel and the United States carried out direct strikes on plants and research centers on Iranian territory in Fordo, Natanz, Isfahan, and Erech. However, the situation took on an even more threatening nature after February 28, 2026 and the beginning of American-Israeli aggression against Iran. In recent months, in addition to most of the mentioned sites, the Bushehr nuclear power plant has also been directly targeted. All these illegal actions and reckless actions not only brought the entire Middle Eastern region to the brink of a nuclear and radiological catastrophe, but also posed a threat to the safety of the lives and health of Russian specialists working at this facility, as well as their families. Against this backdrop, it causes profound bewilderment that UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres, who yesterday expressed his deep concern regarding the strike near the Barakah nuclear power plant, had not once deemed it necessary to react to the numerous attacks on the Bushehr nuclear power plant before. By the way, this fully applies to the criminal attacks by the Kiev regime on the Russian peaceful nuclear energy facility, the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. We are forced to state that these incidents, unlike the strike on the Barakah nuclear power plant, did not receive an adequate response from the UN Security Council and the IAEA. This is particularly surprising given that there is an agency expert on site who has the opportunity to see the Ukrainian attacks and their consequences firsthand. We demand from colleagues in the IAEA Secretariat unequivocal assessments of these criminal actions by Kiev, as well as strong warnings to those countries that continue to escalate military tension around Iran and threaten further attacks on its peaceful nuclear facilities. The leadership of high-profile international organizations must demonstrate principledness in this matter and send unequivocal signals about the inadmissibility of such actions. Double standards and selective approaches on their part in regard to nuclear safety issues are unacceptable and should not be subject to political expediency. Mr. Chairman, it is quite obvious that we would not have to discuss the arising issues today in the Middle East, the threats to nuclear, physical nuclear and radiological safety, if not for the military adventures of the United States and Israel against Iran.